All living things are connected by the same thread. A thread woven through all of existence.
No.
So as I'm recording this video right now, I just finished the Acolyte series finale, and it was pretty bad. But finishing the episode, I started to realize that I feel like at least modern Star Wars right now is following a similar trajectory that is making their shows not very liked by the mass majority of people. Now, I guess this is more so talking about the Acolyte and Ahsoka as well, because those are the two Star Wars shows that have come out the most recently. But I do definitely think that this problem can be applied to the rest of the Star Wars shows in general, and also future Star Wars shows and even Marvel shows as well. So without further ado, let's get into what I believe is Disney's biggest problem and perspective with Star Wars today. I think Disney has the perspective that these shows will do well no matter what because they're Disney and they are Star Wars shows.
Governor Tarkin, I recognized your foul stench as soon as I was brought on board.
Actually that's me. I made a Darth duty.
And that they don't really have to try to do a cohesive story in general because they'll always expect, oh, we'll have a season 2, or, oh, we can just set up another show that directly bounces off of this show.
Like a panther. Yes?
And I'm sure for most people, that is a very greedy mindset to have. So yeah, before talking about the Acolyte, let's talk about Ahsoka.
Well?
Not bad, but not good.
It's been a while.
Now I guess for a little bit of context, I can say that since Ahsoka directly ties into Star Wars Rebels, I guess I can say I was not super thrilled with that fact just because I'm not really the biggest fan of Rebels. I mean, I don't hate it. I didn't exactly finish the show. I saw all of seasons 1 through 3 and then the ending of season 4, but that's really it. So when I saw characters like Sabine were coming back, I was not very excited, to say the least. But I was very hopeful because I heard Thrawn was coming back, and I loved Thrawn in Rebels, and I liked Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, so I thought they would be able to carry the show at the very least. And even though I didn't like some of the characters in Rebels, I thought, oh, maybe because they're bringing them into live action, it might be a little bit different. And I guess to a certain extent it was. I mean, again, like I said, I didn't like Sabine in Rebels, and I didn't particularly like her in Ahsoka, or I guess that's my way of saying that the actress did a really good job playing Sabine, is because I didn't like her character in Ahsoka, and she didn't really change. Most of my problem with Sabine is how she was given the Force when she really had no reason to have the Force, and how she used the Force in very convenient ways. But I mean, I was able to live with it. It is a big portion of the show for sure, but I had a bigger problem with the ending of the show, or not necessarily the ending. I had more of a problem with how the last couple episodes were leading to, I guess. So my main issue that I think is also present in the Acolyte is I feel like Ahsoka didn't really know what type of show it wanted to be, because you would think with the show being called Ahsoka, it's about Ahsoka. But it really didn't feel like it. It felt like more of a Sabine show, if anything, or a Rebel Season 5. Because the only real significant thing Ahsoka did was, after she quote-unquote died, she had a little trip down memory lane with Anakin. And aside from fighting and, I guess, looking at Sabine disappointed, Ahsoka wasn't, or at least to me, I felt like Ahsoka didn't really have much of a stake in the story. I felt like the story was mainly focused on Sabine and training her to be a Jedi, finding Thrawn, and bringing Ezra back home. And it didn't really have to be Ahsoka in the story necessarily. But the main problem I wanted to talk about was the fact that the ending of this show is really just a stepping off point for either a Thrawn show, maybe even an Ezra show, Sabine show, or an Ahsoka season 2, or anything like that. And I feel like that just makes the writers and the showrunners put less effort into their season, where in reality it should be them maybe teasing another season or another part of the story. Or honestly, best case scenario, showing that the story is pretty much done, and then that there's potential for a season 2 or something of that matter. I think this problem is much worse in The Acolyte than Ahsoka, because even though I didn't love Ahsoka or anything, I didn't hate the show at all. There was a lot of fun stuff in it for me, like the Anakin episode, although it was a little forced and didn't really have much to do with the overarching story. I thought it was fun at least. It was cool seeing Hayden Christensen in the Clone Wars outfit, and even showing some of the Siege of Mandalore in live action. And I mean, look at the Obi-Wan show. I mean, I didn't really like the show in general. I thought it was very disappointing, similar to most people, but I think it was obvious that Obi-Wan was going to be a mini-series and not have another season to it. And it really showed with the ending. I mean, the ending with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan is probably my favorite ending of a Star Wars TV show to this day. But in Ahsoka, it just ends with Thrawn escaping and Ezra coming home and all of that stuff. And it seems like the writers were assuming that, oh, the show's gonna do well, let's get a season 2 or another show. But yeah, so now let's talk about The Acolyte.
We thought we were doing the right thing.
So as I said, I just finished the season finale, and yeah, like I said earlier, it was not very good. I mean, I can go on and on about this show and how bad I thought it was. So like I was saying with the ending of Ahsoka, it seems like the writers and the showrunners are going into this with the mindset that they're automatically going to get a season 2, and it really just feels like they're not trying too hard with the season that they're given. So when I first heard about this show, I thought the show was mostly going to be about the Jedi and the Sith, and I guess how the Sith became widely known to the Jedi, even though in The Phantom Menace, the Sith weren't really a thing. So I don't know really what they were thinking.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
But I guess they kind of solved that problem when, I don't remember her name, but the Green Lady, or the Green Jedi, lied to the Jedi Council about what happened with Jedi Master Sol, basically blaming Sol for killing the Jedi when it was really Khmer that killed the Jedi. I mean, it looks like that the Green Jedi lady is going to talk to Yoda about Khmer, so again, setting up a season 2 without really trying for the season 1. But I mean, honestly, the stuff about the Sith was the least important story point in the show. I mean, Khmer showed up in the first couple episodes, but not as a Sith. And by the way, side note, I cannot believe the show was stupid enough to make Khmer the Sith, because he was literally the only other person in the show. I mean, honestly, I didn't even see it coming because I kind of forgot about him, if I'm being honest, because I wasn't really paying attention all the time. But yeah, anyways, that was very stupid. But yeah, the Sith really only showed up in episode 5, 6, and the series finale, which was episode 8. And episode 5 was honestly just a big fight scene, so there wasn't really much of the Sith lore being explained. And honestly, the reveal that Khmer is a Sith, as in like when he says the actual word Sith, was very Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker in Revenge of the Sith.
What are you? I have no name, but a Jedi like you might call me Sith.
Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader.
I honestly think I would have forgiven it if they spent more effort to try and dive deeper into this aspect of the show, because the story about the twins was just not interesting at all. It honestly lost me after episode 3, which was probably the second worst episode of the season. I still think the worst episode is episode 7, just because that they reuse a lot of the footage from episode 3 and they only include the Jedi perspective, and honestly the Jedi perspective is just very ridiculous in my opinion. And this is also one of the biggest problems of the show, is that the writers are putting so little effort into writing the story that they do not make the stuff with the Jedi believable at all. And honestly, to this day, I mean, maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I'm still really confused on a couple of things that happen within this show. So in episode 2, that's the episode that May finds Jedi Master Torben, and Torben willingly takes the poison that May gives him in order to just die. But fast forward to episode 7, we just see that Torben was just very whiny and a little bit reckless, which was very, very annoying. But he was still a Padawan, and you can just assume that he's still learning the ways of the Jedi. And Torben doesn't even really do anything to the women on the planet. Sol is the one who kills May and Osha's mother, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could have been when Osha and May's mother goes into Torben's head, but I thought that scene played into the part where Torben takes a speed bike and goes back to the women to rescue Osha and May. But I don't know, maybe I could just be reading into it a little bit too much, but I think the show should have made it a bit more clear. Or not even a bit more clear, like a lot more clear. Again, the writers and the showrunners need to put a lot more effort into making their show, because you don't know if there's going to be a season 2. So you should make the season that you have a lot more investing. And the second part I'm confused on is that I really don't see why Sol killing Osha and May's mother was such a big stake in the plot. I mean, yeah, of course it's May and Osha's mother, so obviously they're going to be upset with him. But I felt like the show just made it way more of a big deal than it actually was, because even me watching the episode when Osha and May's mother started glowing and everything, like, I feel like no one really knew what was gonna happen. For all the Jedi could have known, what she was doing could have destroyed the entire planet. So I think it was honestly fine for Sol to put a stop to it. And I feel like the show just tried to make this plot point be like, oh, this is why the Jedi are not as squeaky clean or not as attuned to the light side as we think they are, and this is why some of the Sith don't want to be Jedi anymore. Which, especially in this point in time, I think that idea is just ridiculous. I honestly think it's fine for the concept of having a Sith's perspective on why they don't want to be Jedi, or why they think the Jedi are the evil in the galaxy, so to speak. I mean, we saw that in Tales of the Empire with Count Dooku, and even in Revenge of the Sith with Anakin, even though that wasn't conveyed super well, but it made more sense than the Acolyte, that's for sure. Like, I guess my point is that you don't really need to villainize the Jedi in order for us to think, oh, this is why a Sith exists, is because they don't think the Jedi are competent in this sort of way, which has been done plenty of times in many different Star Wars media that's also canon. Now, I'm gonna bring kind of a hot take in here, because I know there's a lot of people who don't like The Last Jedi, and I'm personally someone who does enjoy The Last Jedi, or at least most of The Last Jedi. And I just want to bring up the point that could be brought up that's similar in a sort of sense, which is basically Luke's entire story in The Last Jedi, where he was very bitter towards them, and he didn't think that Rey should learn the ways of the Jedi, and in his words, it's time for the Jedi to end. But I honestly think that that entire story is fine in that movie, because by that point in time, pretty much all the Jedi are extinct, and Luke doesn't really have any Jedi to work with, because Yoda died, Obi-Wan died, and the only person that has the potential to be the next Jedi is Rey. So I can understand how maybe he could have gotten overwhelmed, and maybe he really wasn't the person that everyone thought he would be, so then he kind of just gave up on everything and went into exile. But I don't think that's really how the Acolyte story should work, is because this is really the prime time with all the Jedi. I mean, the Sith aren't even known yet because this is before the Phantom Menace, like I said. And I honestly think at this point in time where the Jedi are in their prime, all of the Jedi should be inherently good in every single way possible. But yeah, anyways, I don't really think that this show's entire mystery is really warranted, and I think that the story was just half-assed in order for a season 2 where Osha and Kamir are the two Sith now, and then Maisie gonna have some other random story, and then the Jedi are slowly gonna find out about the Sith from the Green Jedi. Like, they even have a shot of Darth Plagueis, who shows up in the last episode towards the end. I honestly think the story that they really want to tell, and where all the potential of this story is with the Sith and Kamir and Osha, honestly even May to a certain extent, but it's just bogged down so much with the twin story, the mystery of the Jedi and whatever, and it's just not good. It's just really, really, really stupid. And I mean, maybe a season 2 could be good, but it's honestly a question of whether the show will even get a season 2 based on the reception that the show's gotten. But yeah, those are my thoughts on what I think the biggest problem with the Star Wars TV shows are right now. It mostly started to become more of a problem in Ahsoka, but then really became a much bigger problem in The Acolyte, and something I think can be applied to all of the Star Wars TV shows, except for Andor. Besides Andor and the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, there hasn't really been a Star Wars TV show that's been really good, and that's really sad because Star Wars has such big potential to be really good. And characters like Cad Bane have even showed up in live action, as well as the characters from Rebels. So they really do have the potential to do something really special with this property, but they just don't feel like they have to put the effort in because Star Wars is probably the most popular media out there right now. So Disney thinks that as long as they pump out as many shows as possible, they're always going to have viewership and they're always going to get talked about. And to a certain extent it is, but not in the way that I think they're hoping for.